After a bitter defeat against the iPhone XS Max in daylight, Sony Xperia XZ2 Premium returns for a rematch against the Apple smartphone, this time in Lowlight. Let's see if the iPhone can hold its own against the Sony Lowlight champ. Enjoy!
And this is 1080p, 30 frames per second from the front camera. Sony has much better stabilization and a wider lens. I think colors are better on the iPhone. And this is 1080p, 30 frames per second from the front camera. Sony has much better stabilization and a wider lens. I think colors are better on the iPhone.
Right off the bat, starting with front 1080p video, we see Sony means business. There's no question it has the better lowlight front camera for video. It has a wider field of view, better sharpness and details, lower noise levels. iPhone is not without its strength though, having a brighter exposure with better dynamic range and more natural colors. The sound is also of a higher quality. But overall, I will give the win to Sony for selfie video.
And this is 4K, 30 frames per second. The iPhone has a better dynamic range, and I think it has better stabilization also. And this is 4K, 30 frames per second. The iPhone has a better dynamic range, and I think it has better stabilization also.
In 4K, the XS Max displays a wonderful performance, much better exposure, much wider dynamic range, better details, stutter-free stabilization, and much better colors. Sony overexposes the light sources, turning them from blue to white, but at the same time underexposes the rest of the frame, losing precious details in shadows. Stabilization is also pretty smooth, but has much more jitter and stutter in the light sources.
Hello guys, so this is 1080p, 30 frames per second. On the right we have the XZ2 Premium, and on the left the iPhone XS Max. It is night time, but we have plenty of light thanks to the beautiful Christmas decorations. And let's check the stabilization. I can see on the Sony ultra high sensitivity mode is active. Hello guys, so this is 1080p, 30 frames per second. On the right we have the XZ2 Premium, and on the left the iPhone XS Max. It is night time, but we have plenty of light thanks to the beautiful Christmas decoration. And let's check the stabilization. I can see on the Sony ultra high sensitivity mode is active.
Everything I said in the 4K recording applies here in 1080p video also. Sony is doing a good job for an Android phone, but can't really touch the iPhone quality. Exposure, dynamic range, colors, stabilization, details, everything turns the scale into Apple's favor, even if ultra high sensitivity was on the Sony. Some might argue that the second camera on the Xperia phone makes a big difference in much lower light situations. So let's put it to the test. And this is still 1080p, still 30 frames per second. We went to a much darker scenario to really test the ultra high sensitivity mode of the XZ2 Premium. I already can see it gathers much more light. And this is still 1080p, still 30 frames per second. We went to a much darker scenario to really test the ultra high sensitivity mode of the XZ2 Premium. I already can see it gathers much more light. And indeed, take both phones into a very dark place in the middle of the night and Sony is back on the track, delivering a better video. The main difference is that the XZ2 Premium is able to gather much more light thanks to the high ISO it employs, exposing the video much better. Sound and stabilization are still better on the iPhone though. Overall, the two main categories, back camera 4K and 1080p videos, tip the scale into Apple's favor, being a better video recorder in low light. But if you fancy extreme low light video, better get the Sony. Starting the photo comparison with some selfies, we see again the XZ2 Premium starting off as the better phone. Even if it overexposes the lights behind me and messes up the white balance making my face look pink, the Xperia still has the better selfie camera in low light thanks to the much sharper and better detailed photo. But going into more challenging lighting situations, the same Xperia completely underexposes my face in favor of correctly exposing the lights behind me. Even if it has the sharper photo, here the iPhone wins thanks to an incredible dynamic range and exposure. Moving on to a low light portrait mode photo, here Sony is again the victor, having much better details and clarity, with lower noise levels. Also, edge detection is better here. iPhone is not without its strong points, having much better dynamic range and a telephoto lens that is much better suited for taking portrait shots without any distortions. Now, let's get one thing out of the way. Try to shoot a photo in close to pitch black conditions and only Sony will be able to deliver a usable picture. iPhone's photo is not what I could call a photo, it's more of a dark mess. If I went any lower with the lights, iPhone's photo would have turned into a solid black, while Sony would still be able to capture enough light to make the photo usable. But introduce some light into the frame and things start to balance out. At first, in the right lighting situations you can take equally good photos with both phones, the only difference being the white balance, Sony being warmer, iPhone being more natural. Sharpness and details are on point, Sony having slightly more noise, but nothing too damaging to the picture. as the light gets brighter, the iPhone gets better and better, eventually surpassing the Sony. Mind you, we are still in low light scenarios. We are far from perfect lighting conditions. What amazes me is the level of accuracy and detail the iPhone can pick up without any special night modes, high ISO modes or so on. It relies only on good hardware and good natural software processing. Photos from the Apple flagship are better exposed, have a wider dynamic range, are sharper, and sometimes they even have more natural colors, which is saying a lot when you compare it against a Sony phone that is known for natural colors. The only place where the iPhone is a step behind is in noise control, its pictures repeatedly having more noise than the Sony photos. But that's a trade-off I can gladly accept. Sony's photos are pretty good also, but the exaggerated contrast and the narrow dynamic range overexposes light sources and underexposes shadow areas, losing too much detail. It would still do a better job than a Galaxy phone, especially thanks to those natural colors. But next to an iPhone XS picture, the photos look just too overprocessed. Some people may like the pictures from the Sony more than what iPhone delivers, and usually on a small screen or a social media platform, that high contrast gives an impression of a higher quality picture, but blow it up on a computer screen and you will see how much better the iPhone is. And in post-production, you can take an iPhone picture, import it in a photo editor, bump up the contrast, and voila, you have the Sony photo. But you cannot do it the other way around, cause details lost in shadows or highlights cannot be brought back without insane levels of noise and artifacts in return. So I will let you watch the rest of the photos until our next video. Keep it real guys, this is Pixel Peepers, signing out.